The short film She Knows follows a man who's slowly driven insane by a vengeful spirit after killing a teenage girl in a hit and run. While driving down a lonely street, a man hits a 14-year-old girl and proceeds to hide her body in the nearby woods. Time passes and the story makes the news. The reporter on the radio says that the nation is disgusted and upset over the disappearance of the young girl and encourages the public to keep an eye out for her. Meanwhile, her killer listens on in distress over what he's done. The killer gets a call from a friend who says they just wanted to check in on him, but he's blindsided when the friend asks what he did to the girl and where he put her. But his friend's voice becomes increasingly more distorted the more he asks about the missing body, so the killer hangs up. He tries distracting himself by watching some TV but eventually falls asleep. Unbeknownst to him, the ghostly figure of the girl he killed is standing directly over his sleeping body. He's startled awake and heads to bed, but is awoken by loud banging noises coming from another room. As he heads closer, he hears crying coming from the other side of the door. As the crying turns into a maniacal laugh, fingers seep through the crack in the door. He heads back to his room and grabs the baseball bat under his bed, before proceeding back into the hallway. As he makes his way towards the now fully open door, a ghostly figure pops out of the room behind him. This film explores the psychological consequences that come along with guilt. The man had not only committed murder, but he avoided any consequences he should have faced. One could argue that he may have been in shock, but the act of hiding the body shows that he knew exactly what he had done and was aware of the repercussions he would have faced had he turned himself in. In addition, he was completely aware of how others were affected by the girl's disappearance. According to the news, the last time she had been seen was before she left school that very day. Her parents, friends, and the public in general were concerned for her safety. Her killer knew about all of this, yet he decided to sit back and not give her loved ones the closure they needed. Even though the girl's ghost is portrayed to be the monster in this film, the actions of her killer depict who the real monster truly is. In the end, his guilt didn't catch up to him quickly enough, and the girl's ghost was forced to make him face the repercussions he so desperately tried to avoid. In the short film Cookie, we follow a little girl who lies about the amount of cookies she sneaks from the cookie jar. As punishment, her mom replaces the old jar with one that may be possessed. A little girl named Bree sneaks so many cookies from the cookie jar that it gives her a stomachache. When her mom gets home, she notices all the crumbs surrounding her daughter and asks her how many cookies she ate. Bree lies and insists she only had one, but her mom says she counted them before she left and knows exactly how many should be in the jar. Her mom heads over to the counter and begins packing the cookies away into a newer, scarier jar. Bree announces her disdain for the new jar, and her mom warns that the jar is only for adults, and any kid who tries to steal a cookie from this jar will face a gruesome death. But to Bree, cookies are worth a gruesome fate, and she decides to sneak a cookie anyway. That night, she has a nightmare where she's attacked by a deranged clown. After being tucked into bed, she decides to take matters into her own hands by sneaking out in the middle of the night and heading to a nearby park where she destroys the new jar herself. The next day, her mom asks her where the cookie jar is. Bree lies and says she doesn't know what happened to it. By the end of their conversation, they both agree that there will be no more cookies in the house. 2 weeks later, Bree has developed a disturbing hobby where she paints clown faces on her dolls and family pictures. After saying goodnight to her mom, Bree rolls over and says goodnight to the clown monster tucked in beside her. This film shows a disturbing take on a child overcoming their fears. In the beginning, when the clown cookie jar was introduced, Bree had been terrified of the smiling, deranged face. Yet despite this, she never let her fear get in the way of obtaining her goal of getting a cookie. If anything, her fear only made her more persistent. Perhaps this film also explores poor disciplinary practices. Bree's mother had tried to scare her into obedience. By the end of the film, she'd only further encouraged her daughter's misbehavior. Not only did Bree continue spewing lies, but she placed herself in danger by sneaking out in the middle of the night, developing habits that made her babysitter fearful to be around her, and formed disturbing friendships that her mother knew nothing about. Alternatively, maybe Bree making friends with the clown monster in the end parallels her love for old horror movies. Throughout the film, Bree watched old horror for her own enjoyment and didn't seem to fear the content matter, despite her young age. Perhaps her friendship with the demon was a result of understanding that the monsters in her favorite films can't hurt her. Because of this, she'd applied that same lesson to the monster in real life. When Bree realized her mother had been lying about what would happen if she stole from the cookie jar, her perception of events changed. In Bree's mind, the cookie jar was no longer dangerous. When she awoke from her nightmare, it made her mother's lie even more evident. She did not die like her mother said she would, and as a result, she had no reason to continue fearing the very thing that was supposed supposed to scare her. Or maybe the demon clown is all in Bree's imagination. Children often get obsessed with things such as TV shows, toys, movies, and more. Because of her love for horror, fear is considered fun, and the clown demon is simply an imaginary friend and a way for her to make her scary fantasies into a reality. Who's Hungry is a short animated film inspired by Hansel and Gretel. In this film, two kids get snatched by their local ice cream truck man and need to escape his deadly den before they become his next meal. A brother and sister approach the local ice cream truck. The sister is hesitant when the driver hands them free treats, but eventually gives in. The moment she's close enough, the driver snatches her and her brother. The moment he's home, the ice cream man hangs the sister up in a dark closet. As he puts the brother in a freezer, he plucks out the frozen body of his previous victim. While the ice cream man snacks away on pureed children, the little girl escapes. She sneaks up behind him with a hook and knocks him out before saving her brother. But all this danger has made the brother hungry, and he decides to have a little taste of what the ice cream man had been eating. The sister urges them to leave, but it's too late. The ice cream man has already woken up. As he lunges at them, the brother drops the bowl of pureed child porridge. The ice cream man slips on the mess and falls into the blender. The sister turns it on, and they watch their captor turn into minced meat before escaping. This film is a depiction of stranger danger. Most parents tell their children not to talk to strangers because predators prey on the young and vulnerable. But maybe these children didn't view their local ice cream man as a stranger. As the ice cream truck driver, he probably passes through their neighborhood every day. In these children's minds, he may even be considered a friend. But just because you've grown accustomed to a person's presence doesn't mean they're your friend. Unfortunately for these children, they were forced to learn that the person they saw on a regular basis had dangerous ulterior motives. Or maybe this film is a metaphor for the consequences of greed. The little boy's greed had gotten them into this situation, but it also got them out. Additionally, the ice cream man's greed played a role in his demise as well. He had gone searching for more children even though he already had a child he planned on consuming. He had been so greedy that he was already thinking about his next meal before finishing the one he already had. Not only that, but he plucked two children instead of one. Had he only taken one of the children, he could have gotten away with his crime. But because there were two children and they were able to work together to overthrow their captor, they had successfully escaped the ice cream man's clutches. This is a story about a little girl who invites a demon into her home. It's the eve of Satsuban, a Japanese tradition marking the day before spring. During Satsuban, it's tradition to throw soybeans to bring good fortune and expel evil spirit. That night, Ayumi and her parents are eating dinner, but Ayumi refuses to finish her food. Her mom tells her that if she doesn't finish her dinner, she won't be allowed to throw the soybeans and cast out evil spirits. Ayumi doesn't believe in these evil spirits her parents warn her about because she's never seen one for herself. Her parents insist that evil spirits can be anywhere and anyone, and if she doesn't finish her food, a bakemono is gonna come and take it away since they don't have parents who make them food like Ayumi's does. Unlike Ayumi, bakemono parents starve their children. This makes Ayumi so sad that she offers to share her leftovers with the bakemono. Her mom becomes enraged and pulls her daughter outside, demanding that she throw the soybeans. But it's cold outside, and Ayumi doesn't want the bakemono to freeze. Her parents try to scare her with a lame jump scare prank, but it only further annoys Ayumi. She storms back inside, dumps her soybeans on the counter, and heads to bed. Ayumi wakes up in the middle of the night to leave food out for the bakemono. When the food vanishes within seconds, Ayumi knows that the bakemono is near. After bringing the bakemono more food, the spirit shows itself. It begs for more, but when Ayumi has no more left to give, the bakemono turns to her instead. The next morning, Ayumi is awake and ready for breakfast before her parents, and she's in a lot better mood than she was the previous day. When she served her food, she consumes it at an alarmingly fast pace. It's only then that her parents noticed a demonic spirit inside of their child. Her mom hurls a fistful of soybeans at her daughter, banishing the demon from their home. And even though the family might be saved from the bakemono, they still lost their daughter. This film shows the importance of maintaining healthy communication with children, as well as how childlike innocence can sometimes cloud a person's judgment. Ayumi's childlike innocence allowed her to see the best in everyone, and because of this, she didn't understand the extent of the situation she was in. All she knew was that there was someone or something out there who was going to be cold and hungry if she didn't help them. All she wanted to do was help an unfortunate soul, but because she didn't understand the threat of opening herself up to danger, the bakemono was able to take advantage of her kindness. Another misunderstanding happened in the beginning when her mother was explaining why their Satsuban tradition was so important. Perhaps this was done to show the difficulties of passing down cultural traditions from generation to generation. Iyumi was young and didn't understand the importance of throwing kidney beans to get good luck. In her head, this tradition didn't make sense because there was no tangible evidence to support why kidney beans would grant her good luck. In addition, her parents didn't take the time to actually explain the tradition to her. They told her to throw kidney beans for good luck. They didn't explain that the bakemono would eat her if invited inside the home. Perhaps even they didn't believe in something that was only supposed to be a superstition. The mother even calls it a game and doesn't realize how real it all was until she was forced to expel her own daughter. Through this, it shows how traditions are taken less seriously as generations progress. The parents believed the superstition to be a game, and in turn, the daughter didn't take it seriously either. Maybe this is to show that children often mimic what they see. Iyumi's parents were passing down a tradition they didn't even fully believe in. They thought it was something fun to do and were more upset that Iyumi didn't follow their orders. And in the end, everyone had to suffer the consequences of their actions.